Hello, in this video I want to talk about abusive family relations. Now, this is not about my family, the one I created, but the one I came from. This is it. Abuse is most often mental, so it's not physical. And the way it expresses itself, in my opinion, is that most of the time you can find a place during your upbringing where things changed, where the relation towards you changed from one or both parents. And the way it expresses itself, in my opinion, is that there's always, if there is emotional abuse, there might be one person or two persons in the family who are the victims, or one person, and there's always a blockout of that person. For example, in my experience, when you realize that when you have gone through a rough situation and it gets sort of shrugged off, or you're telling a very sensitive story and people just interrupt for no reason at all, or people sort of say one thing, or parents, siblings, whatever, say one thing and then change what they said afterwards, and then sort of accuse you of something, or when you always sort of have this villain role. So no matter what you do, you're always supposed to be the villain, the failure, and so on. And in my experience, when you overcome that, eventually, hopefully you do, you realize that the relation towards you will sort of end or become more vile, because you have not lived up to the negative expectations. You have not been a villain, you're not a horrible person, and you haven't failed. You didn't turn into a bum or drug addict or a loser or something like that. And that bugs people, and it's always like there's a story in every family. So the person being abused is often does not have the privilege of having their story told. So there's always a story about that person who is abused through various ways, through emotions, feelings, various blockades. And this turns out variously for various people, of course. In my situation, I've always been the one who have, okay, let's sit down at the table, let's discuss this honestly. And it's sort of, even if that happened, it never sort of really got better, because the same patterns do repeat. And in my life, eventually, you're not young, and you have obligations, you have a higher mission in life, you have your own family, you have your own job, you have your own energy you want to give to people in a good way. So you don't have time for this sort of repetitive story that's trying to drag you down into the role of being the stupid, the fool, the villain, the loser, whatever is the situation in perhaps your family, if you have been in this situation. And the thing is, until you sort of break free of that, there is always this risk that you sort of take the bite. It's like when somebody provokes you, you see, they know exactly where to push and what to say. And one thing that always gets people to react, it's lies, basically, utmost plain lies, or denial of basic facts, because that's something that's like, it's beyond just being a verbal sort of interchange. It's something that you're accused of and you have to defend yourself with. So I'm not going to go into any specific situations. I just want to share that there is a way of dealing with this kind of relationships, and I'm talking especially with the sort of family you came out of from, not your family, your wife and that. So in the end, you realize that you have two choices, or three. Let's take the third. That's the one of just dulling off. Like, just being there but not really being there, just for the act, which is a fake behavior, and you know, is the sort of weird outcome of this. And I've seen that this. The second one is to try to fix stuff, you know, as long as you can. But also, while trying to fix, if you always come up with the same sort of wall, no understanding, no forgiveness, nothing, just a wall, and small things being blown out of proportion, and always something negative towards you. So basically, there's never anything positive said or mentioned about you, always the negative. Like you know, a healthy person dives very deep into something positive, like, wow, there's so much to explore here. A toxic personality has like, goes down to this level at the positive, but goes so way deep into the negative. And that's just hopeless. There's nothing you can do. That leaves you with the only option left to sort of just, you know, realize that everything is eternal, and say, you know, goodbye. I have something else to do, and I want to create a good, healthy life, family, and surrounding. I'm not going to be your scapegoat, your doctor, and I'm not going to take care of this situation anymore. And this is the problem, because when toxic people or families don't want to get fixed or just to open up, they always pick, like, if you are the black sheep of your family, I mean, you want to come up with a solution, you want to bring people to the table. In my experience, it's always been like, while you're trying to do that, you're always getting shot at. You're always getting like mentally, emotionally shut down at. Which makes it a tiresome progress, because the other parts do not want to sort of come to the fix solution. And in the end, you have to realize it's very sad, because if you come out of this with your skin, with your happy life, whatever, you realize how much sadness there is in those people, which made you, which are your blood relatives, because they are addicted to the negative, to the toxic, and they dare to, you know, jump and have fun in the negative, but they just barely bear to touch the positive aspects of life. That's sad. And yeah, from my own experience, it's kind of a big decision to make, to realize that, because you see, nothing you do can change anything. Like, you always have this repetitive scenario going on, and as you get older and, you know, you have your own beautiful vision to create, you don't have the time or the energy, and you see that it's pointless. So everybody will get liberated in some way, sometime. And, you know, just because somebody is your family member doesn't mean that they are healthy for you. If you have tried every bit and parts, and if you honestly with yourself consider yourself to be having good intentions, you know, just because you have good intentions doesn't mean everybody else has. And just because you try to solve something doesn't mean other people will do that. And this is quite sad, and it happens a lot. And, you know, it's part of my story and who I am. And one thing, you know, like, well-being comes from having a good resonance with the people around you. So having people who don't think like you, that's okay mostly. But when people are rude and mean, and just sort of, not in a direct way, but in the long run, always want to have you on some kind of a villain, negative pedestal up front, it's a tiring thing, and it makes you feel bad. You know, it's just like if you have made a good dinner and you get the bad news, you don't feel like eating. So the emotional well-being of a person is really the most important thing. It comes before any food, any activity at all. And what hurts us most, it's our close relationships, friends, family. I think many people can agree upon, when they feel down or bad, it's often something that's been happening with their partner or friend or whatever. And you see, and it takes a lot of healing process to do that. You see, I get sort of dry in my mouth by talking about this, but in the end, there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do, really. And even if you would like to sort of have this forgiving moment, you might not gonna get that. So you have to forgive yourself and just leave it. Because in my case, I don't want to have another 10 years of how it's been the last 10 years. There's no point in having that. I have no bad intentions, you see, and why should I waste my precious time anymore with people of any relative closeness if they are toxic towards you, especially when you have your own family. And through some kind of spin-off situation, this creates for a good learning opportunity how to sort of do and not do as a parent in my future life. Although you don't have to learn on your own mistakes, you see, you can always learn from other people's mistakes. But basically, it's a sad thing in the end. Not for myself, not for you if you're the victim. If you get out of it somehow, I don't know, people find solution in various myriad kinds of ways. You realize like how sad it is to have somebody that's your flesh and blood that does not want to just be in the light, just doesn't want to have this sort of easy, shining kind of communication and relationship with you, even though they created you. And that's very sad. And why this is a big problem is because it's come so masked up. So it's not like, people, it takes time for this to get realized. And you realize this when you grow up from a child and sort of meet the other world. You meet lots of good, bad, healthy, and sick stuff in the world. So you can compare and you can realize like, oh, this was with me. And so it's kind of sad. And I think it has to do with basically the tragic life of that person in your family who is emotionally trying to hook you all the time in some way or another, never sort of giving you the positive, always sort of blaming you for something. It's because they themselves have never had that sort of self-enlightening experience of realizing who they are, and it's quite sad. And it's a good lesson because you realize that you can read 1,000 books, you can give birth to people, you can do everything that's expected of you, but it doesn't mean you will actually become a free, good, healthy, vibrant person. There's something else that teaches us how to become that. And as I said, I'm not a teacher in that. There are various ways, but the best starting point is always honesty with yourself. There was some thoughts on how to sort of just some thoughts about family abuse and that kind of stuff. You have to always think that you are the result of someone else's work in the end. No matter how glorious it is to have a good functioning core family, not all people have that, but you can always create your own and see the sadness in other people and their tragic sort of behavior and learn from that and be honest with yourself so you don't get to become that person, which can be easy because people copy their parents, right? So you have to reprogram yourself through various ways. There's a good lecture about that by Bruce Lipton. I'll give the link below. Probably more than I can say about how to sort of reprogram or not become the result of your parents' behavior if you are not, in favor of your parents' behavior. Some people have that's, and not all people are good and or bad. It's you can be a good person, but you can be very abusive towards your child or something like that, which is the lesson here, I guess. And for me, for my part, I had to take this decision to actually just say, I've done it all. I put people on the table. I said, like, let's never get into the sensitive stuff. Let's just move on, have a great time for whatever time is left. But when you realize not even that is possible, so you just have to, go to the higher consciousness and, realize it's all eternal, it's all God. And some people just don't see the beauty of this short or long life we have. Anyway, take care and all the best. Ciao.